Did you want to go to Reason Rally 2016 on June 4th and can't afford it? Do you want your group to be a part of the biggest atheist and free thought rally in 2016? Now's your chance. Reason Rally 2016 is looking for groups that want to come to the Reason Rally for a great rate. Reason Rally is working with rallybus.net, your online crowdsourced event bus sharing, to bring you to the Reason Rally and to take you home. Go to rallybus.net/reason-rally and sign up today. We need bus captains and organizers to set up groups of 40 or more that can meet up in major cities and ride share. Go to rallybus.net/reason-rally to set yours up today.
Greetings and salutations. Welcome to Havoc and Chaos Live, weekly look at some of the batshittery we call news, and the pals, pundits, and other off-the-wall people, myself included, who claim to know what is really going on in our world. I'm an atheist, a lesbian, and I have bipolar disorder, among other things. Therefore, hate of any kind is not welcome in my world. I am opinionated, and my impulse control went by the wayside months ago, so I say what I feel. In other words, stupid, smart people piss me the fuck off. Be forewarned, I'm highly excitable, and if you are easily offended by four-letter words or longer, you may want to go and listen to something else. I really need a new intro. I will take suggestions. Thank you. Tonight, we are going to take a bit of a road trip. While information gathering for the episodes concerning Kent Hovind and Mary Tocco, a story began to emerge. Andrew Wakefield's movie, Vaxxed, was removed from the Tribeca Film Festival. I'm not planning, although we know how that can change, on another tirade into the anti-vaxx movement. Wakefield, with his fabricated study, along with financial shenanigans, has thoroughly been trashed by those much better than I. What is at issue? Have Wakefield's First Amendment rights been trampled on? It is an issue I was going to address in regards to Phil Robertson and the Duck Dynasty A&E flap, but destiny took me elsewhere. So today, and probably next week, and maybe even the week after that, we will take a look-see. Were Wakefield's and Robertson's rights trampled? The simple answer is no. The simple explanation is neither Tribeca nor A&E are considered government agencies. As we all know, I don't like simple. Makes for very short diatribes. First, though, we will have to take in a bit of history. While it deals with SOCUS, or separation of church and state, primarily, there are ramifications in regard to the other part of the First Amendment that people seem to conveniently forget, that of free speech. This is part of a show that I did while associated with another radio platform. It was initially geared towards the pagan community, those that held, shall we say, non-traditional religious beliefs, those that considered their talents gifts from God, which, for all intents and purposes, we as atheists hold non-traditional religious views, or don't hold, as the case may be. It was for those that felt themselves safe because in their minds they were Christian enough. I have revamped it a bit to fit my needs for tonight because the information is valid regardless of what your religious affiliation is. It's a primer on SOCUS that I tinker with in an effort to make my presentation better. As I mentioned prior, its relevance will become important in the next couple weeks when I hope to discuss the movie Vaxxed and Andrew Wakefield's expression of persecution and censorship, along with the CDC Thompson debacle, which is part of the gist of the movie. But it also ties into our current election season here in the United States as well. SOCUS issues are again, or I should say still, in the spotlight. As many of you know, I follow SOCUS issues pretty close, especially concerning the faux religious liberty issues in regards to LGBTQI discrimination, and also the rise of the dominionist or theocratic movement. As non-believers, the implication of SOCUS are quite obvious. But what about the so-called liberal or progressive Christians that many within our community like to reach out to? The interfaith movement. How would the issue of SOCUS affect them? And it does, and not in a roundabout fashion either, as many may think. Now, I know many of you have seen some of the more egregious political and religious rhetoric that I've posted on Facebook and via my blog from what I call the right. It doesn't really matter how you label them: moral majority, religious right, Tea Party, GOTP, assholes, etc. Many pundits, many politicians, pulpits, and celebrities have been espousing this rhetoric and a return to what they call the biblical or Christian roots of our founding fathers. The problem is they have twisted and perverted what the founders have said, a la David Barton, so that it's hard to know what the original intent was. Now, there's a clip I really wish I could play the whole thing. And it's courtesy of People for the American Way, PFA, but time constraints will not allow for it. It's a 7-minute mini documentary entitled The Religious Right Then and Now, and it highlights the right near the peak of their power in 1992 at the Republican National Convention, which was held in the Houston Astrodome. Now, you're obviously not going to check it out now, but think of this when you do watch it. How have things changed? And to give you a little bit bigger picture, so to speak, I have a brief timeline in the show notes, and it highlights the fact that this movement is a very well thought out and continuing plan. And you've heard me speak of it before. Part of it is the 15% solution. Another part of it is the Manhattan Declaration, which I haven't spoke on yet, and the Wedge document, which friend of the show, Dave Foda, is a fan of. And that's another issue I will be taking up sometime soon. But before we continue, there are two very simplistic points to keep in mind while cruising through this topic. One, I want you all to do a bit of a fill in the blank, hypothetically, since I'm assuming I'm speaking to the choir. Church-state separation doesn't affect me because I am whatever traditional or non-traditional belief system you may practice. Now, keep that in mind and consider this point. Number two, which Bible and which form or denomination of Christianity, keeping in mind that currently there's over 41,000 different Christian denominations or organizations worldwide, with approximately 1,500 of those groups within the U.S. Also, even though we don't know the exact number of English translations, since 1526, when Tyndale's New Testament began circulating, the number of translations or paraphrases, partial or full, is around 900. I've actually seen numbers as high as 3,300, so keep that in mind as we go through this. Do you see where I'm leading with this? This notion is what drives me bonkers. They do not realize that within the Dominionist ideology, they are not the right kind of Christian and read the wrong Bible. More on that later. So, exactly what are we talking about? Very simply, really, the First Amendment of the U.S. Constitution, which states, quote,
Congress shall make no law respecting an establishment of religion, or prohibiting the free exercise thereof, or abridging the freedom of speech or of the press, or the right of the people peacefully to assemble, and to petition the government for redress of grievances.
The part we're most interested in at the moment, Congress shall make no law respecting an establishment of religion or prohibiting the free exercise thereof. Keep in mind who this is speaking to. Congress. Put another way, the government, whether it be local, state, or federal. As part of the Bill of Rights, the first 10 amendments were ratified on December 15, 1791. Prior to the enactment of the 14th Amendment in 1868, the Supreme Court generally held that the protections of the Bill of Rights did not apply to state governments. This is why some within the Reich want the 14th Amendment removed. Reason being, it is the basis of many civil liberty cases currently before the courts. By virtue of the Due Process Clause of the 14th Amendment, most of the Bill of Rights now apply to the state and local governments. In Section 1 it states,
Nor shall any state deprive any person of life, liberty, or property without due process of law.
It wasn't until the Everson v. Board of Education in 1947 that the Establishment Clause was fully incorporated. and that basically means made to apply against the states. It was then that the phrase separation between church and state, as attributed to Thomas Jefferson, became the mainstay central to this issue. Now, just kind of a brief note, while much of the debate concerning the 14th Amendment generally centers around birthright citizenship, it is held by some that the Equal Protection Clause was not intended to prohibit discrimination as currently held by the courts. I'm not going to get into that debate at the moment. But bear in mind, some want the right to discriminate. Now, numerous court cases have been held throughout our history, as far back as 1879, and the court has always looked at our history as a republic in deciding such cases. Justice Hugo Black, in Everson, sums up the whole issue very succinctly. Quote,
"The establishment of the religion clause of the First Amendment means at least this. Neither a state nor the federal government can set up a church. Neither can pass laws which aid one religion, aid all religions, or prefer one religion over another. Neither can force nor influence a person to go to or remain away from church against his will, or force him to profess a belief or disbelief in any religion. No person can be punished for entertaining or professing religious beliefs or disbeliefs, for church attendance or non-attendance. No tax in any amount, large or small, can be levied to support any religious activities or institutions, whatever they may be called, or whatever form they may adopt to teach or practice religion. Neither a state nor the federal government can openly or secretly participate in the affairs of any religious organizations or group, and vice versa. In the words of Jefferson, the clause against establishment of religion by law was intended to erect a wall of separation between church and state. See also Reynolds v. United States."
end quote. What makes Black's opinion so powerful? Not only does Justice Black rely on Jefferson's letter to the Danbury Baptist Association, but also the words of James Madison, Memorial and Remonstrance Against Religious Assessment, who, by the way, wrote the First Amendment. So, as you can see, this is not a new issue. It's not some recent atheistic or secular agenda. It's an issue with a long history in our country. And if you ever have the time, you really should read Black's opinion, starting around page 8. He gives a wonderful history lesson concerning religious freedoms in our country, and the why of our Constitution being the secular document that it is, contrary to what David Barton and his ilk may have you believe. The takeaway I want for this segment, for you to have or to leave you with, is this. There is no gray area where the First Amendment is concerned. The founders were quite adamant in regards to SOCAs, as well as issues of free speech. They only pertain to the government. SOCAs is not new. The separation of powers refers to the government, not private individuals or businesses. In other words, you can have an opinion, but the First and the 14th Amendment do not protect you from criticism or ramifications thereof. And in regards to politics alone, religious liberty is still a huge issue. So, in light of Wakefield Crime File, along with Robertson and if you remember the Chick-fil-A guy who went through the drive-thru and then videotaped it and posted it, no wonder why he lost his job. When one looks at the entire First Amendment, minus the Reconstructionist lens, it's fairly plain and simple. Next week, we may take a look at the Wedge document, or we may continue with the Dominionist theme. Haven't decided yet. But in any event, let's go back to Rachel Lannon Brown and our discussion on evolution and sexuality and how the two are intertwined.